He placed the bag inside the wardrobe, and at midnight, he opened it. Out slithered the snake, which Allah had explained would transform into a stunning woman. Uchenna then slept with the woman, who reverted back into the snake and returned to the bag exactly as Allah had demonstrated. In the beautiful city of Ed, there resided a prosperous businessman named Motsi Kai. His enterprise flourished with numerous branches and outlets across the country. Sadly, Motsi's wife, Oi, passed away while giving birth to their twin sons, whom he cherished deeply. The first son was named Emma, and the second was called Ucha. As they grew up, both sons proved to be very intelligent and smart, but their personalities were complete opposites. Emma was kind and compassionate, always caring for the poor and offering help whenever he could. Many people loved and admired Emma. In contrast, his brother Ucha was rude and lacked compassion. He disliked the poor and looked down on them. Emma felt fortunate to have so much, so he consistently helped the poor. On the other hand, Ucha believed that only lazy people were poor. Motsi saw that Emma was very passionate and loved by everyone, so he wanted Emma to be the successor of his company. However, Ucha was the elder twin, and by tradition, he was expected to take over the company when Motsi retired. This issue gave Motsi a lot of sleepless nights, but after thinking for a long time, he decided to create a competition between Emma and Ucha. Whoever wins the competition would be the rightful heir to his empire. One day, he called both his sons for a very important meeting. In the meeting, his two sons and his lawyers were present. "You've both grown into such intelligent young men, and I'm incredibly proud of both of you. But as you know, my retirement is approaching, and one of you will need to step up to take over my empire. The question is, who will it be?" Ucha smiled at his father's question and jumped in before his father could finish. "I think we all know the answer to that. I'm the eldest son, so by right, I should be your true heir." "Really?" his father questioned. "You're only 5 minutes older than your younger brother." "If we're deciding based on age, you both have an equal claim." "What do you mean?" "Aren't I your first son? You're both my sons, and I love you both equally," his father replied. "I don't think it's fair for inheritance to be based on age alone. I want to see who proves themselves capable. So what do you suggest?" Ucha asked. "Good question. Since neither of you is married yet, there's a saying that behind every successful man is a woman. Are you suggesting we need to get married first?" "Yes. Whoever gets married first will be the rightful heir to my empire." Ucha laughed heartily at his father's challenge, finding it an easy task. "That's no problem. I'll bring you a wife before the end of the week," Ucha confidently declared. Meanwhile, Emma remained quietly seated, listening attentively to their father's words. "Emma, don't you have anything to say?" Motsi asked. Emma smiled at his father's question and replied, "You are a very wise man. If your empire is the prize, I'm sure the task won't be easy. I'm eagerly waiting for the terms and conditions." Motsi smiled at Emma's words and applauded his intelligence. Then he gestured to his lawyer to give each of them a document. "From now on, you both no longer have access to your father's wealth. A stipulated amount of money will be given to each of you. It will be enough to rent a house and feed you for 3 months, Motsi continued. You have 1 year to bring home a woman who genuinely and truly loves you, even as a commoner. You have enough money to feed you for 3 months, and within that time, you should find a job to sustain you for the rest of the year. Emma smiled at his father's words. He quietly signed the document and promised his father he would not disappoint. Then he stood up and left the room. Ucha, on the other hand, sat with rage. How do you expect me to find a wife in less than a year with peanuts? What kind of house can this money afford? Ucha complained. However, Motsi told Ucha his mind was made up, and if Emma returned with a responsible bride before him, then Emma would be the heir to his empire. You have 1 week to vacate my house and go in search of a responsible bride, Motsi told Ucha and walked away. Emma went to his room and started thinking of a way to find a virtuous woman who would love him for his personality and not his wealth. After contemplating for some hours, Emma decided he would go to a town far from Ed and pretend to be a crippled man. He told himself that if any woman could love a crippled man, she would make a very good wife. So he began thinking of the right town to visit. Meanwhile, Ucha was agitated by his father's words. He was very upset and angry because he hated the poor and couldn't imagine himself living among them as one of them. Instead of thinking of a way to find a virtuous wife, Ucha started thinking of ways to trick his father into giving him the inheritance regardless of his decision. He went to see his father and tried to convince him to change his mind. I am the rightful heir to your empire, father. Why are you trying to deny me my birthright? Motsi smiled at Ucha's arrogance. My parents died when I was just 10 years old. They left me with nothing. Your mother and I had to build this empire with our blood and sweat over the years. You should be grateful for what you have. Are you saying we must suffer like you did because you suffered? You must learn to be grateful for what you have and what you are given. Bring me a virtuous woman for a wife and inherit my empire. How difficult is that? Motsi was deeply hurt and angry by Ucha's words. Out of anger, he instructed his security not to let either of his sons near his company or house for the next 12 months, the time he had given them to find a virtuous wife. Emma was a generous man and had helped many people in need, so he had many friends he could ask for help. He remembered a time when he helped a man named David, whom he saw standing on the road with a sign begging for a job. Emma went to his father's company and met David. He told David he wanted to understand what being poor felt like and was looking for a small village with good people. David laughed at first, thinking Emma was joking. But when he saw Emma was serious, he told him about a village called Oya, not far from his hometown. The people of Oya were known for their kindness and generosity. I think you would love it there and learn a lot, David said. Emma thanked David for his help and went home to pack his things for the journey to Oya village. He went to the market to buy some local clothes and a wheelchair. After that, he started his journey to Oya village. A few days later, he arrived at the village, found an unfinished building, and changed into the local clothes he had bought. Then he practiced using the wheelchair. After a week, he could move around easily. He entered the village in the wheelchair, pretending to be crippled. Emma rented a small house away from the main village so no one could watch him closely. He divided his money in half and saved one half for food. The next day, Emma wheeled himself around the market to make sure no one recognized him. He found that most people in Oya were not as nice as David described. Many were rude and harsh, but a few were friendly. The village had many opportunities because the economy was good. Emma observed the market for a few weeks and decided to sell vegetables. He saw that it was profitable and wouldn't be too hard since he was pretending to be crippled. Emma would wake up at 5 a.m. to visit farmers and buy vegetables cheaply. Then he would go to the market and sell them. At first, his business was slow, but as people got to know Emma and saw how kind he was, his business started to do well. He made money and began to save some too. Meanwhile, Ucha, unlike Emma, went to a big city called Ekeo, far from Ed City. Ekeo was known for its lavish lifestyle, and only the rich lived there. Ucha stayed in a big hotel in Ekeo City. He planned to find a wife from a wealthy family, but this was not easy because he had no job, and the hotel bills were very expensive. After spending almost all the money his father gave him for a week in the hotel, Ucha realized he had to act quickly. He came up with a plan. He loaned the remaining money to someone at a high interest rate, meaning he would have to pay back more money within a set time. This didn't worry Ucha, as he believed he would find a rich wife who would pay off his debt. Ucha used the money to buy expensive clothes and started going to different bars and clubs every night, mingling with the rich and elite in the city. Luckily for Ucha, he met a very wealthy businessman who owned many estates and businesses. They became close friends. This friend owned one of the biggest supermarkets in the city. Ucha asked him for a job, but his friend, knowing Ucha came from a wealthy family, said working in a supermarket was beneath him. Instead, he connected Ucha with many rich and wealthy people. This was perfect for Ucha, who loved living lavishly and hated working for anyone. He started following his friend to different places and events, forgetting his main goal of finding a wife who genuinely loved him. Back in Oya village, Emma continued with his vegetable business and started making a profit. He became very popular and loved by everyone in the village. One day, on his way back from the farm where he bought vegetables, Emma heard some villagers talking about a very beautiful lady named Ada. She was the daughter of the chief priest and a devoted farmer. They said she was one of the most beautiful women in the village but didn't have many friends because of her father's position. This intrigued Emma, and he became curious to meet Ada. A few days later, Emma went to the market to sell his vegetables as usual. He saw a beautiful lady selling yams by the roadside. She was so beautiful that Emma couldn't take his eyes off her. He quickly wheeled himself over to where she was selling yams and asked if she was Ada. The lady was surprised and asked how he knew her name. He introduced himself as Emeka, a vegetable seller, and they started talking. Emma found out that Ada was very friendly and respectful. He also discovered that she was very intelligent and had good business ideas. Emma felt he had found the right lady but wanted to be sure. He bought some yams from her and went back home, thinking about how to approach her. After much thought, he decided to let Ada join his vegetable business to see how things would go. A few days later, he went back to Ada's shop and told her his idea. Ada smiled and agreed to join him. They started the business together, and it did very well, bringing in a lot of profit. Emma and Ada became close friends and developed a strong bond. But Emma still didn't tell her his true identity. He wanted to be sure she loved him for who he was. Emma decided to test Ada to see if she truly loved him. One day, Emma pretended to be very sick and couldn't go to the market. Ada was very worried and took good care of him. She made sure he was comfortable and provided everything he needed. This made Emma realize that Ada was the one he had been looking for. He revealed his true identity to her and told her about his father's competition. Ada was shocked at first but later agreed to marry Emma. Meanwhile, Ucha was still struggling to find a wife. He met many ladies, but none of them were interested because he had no job and no money. Ucha became very frustrated and regretted his decisions. After a year, Motsi called both his sons to present their wives. Emma came with Ada and introduced her to his father. Motsi was very impressed with Ada and blessed their union. Ucha, on the other hand, had no wife to present. He was deeply ashamed and regretted his actions. Motsi handed over his empire to Emma and made him the rightful heir. Ucha learned a hard lesson and promised to change his ways. Emma and Ada lived happily ever after and continued to grow their father's empire. The end.